Most oncologists won't tell you this at your annual checkup, not because it's secret, but because the visit ends before they can. Pause. I'm Dr. Richard Caldwell. I've spent 27 years as a practicing oncologist and cancer prevention researcher, and what I'm about to share with you in the next 18 minutes has taken me nearly 3 decades to distill into something simple enough to actually use. Here's the number that stopped me cold when I first saw it. A landmark study published in Nature Medicine in 2021 out of the University of California, San Diego, tracking 197,000 adults over 12 years, found that specific daily lifestyle habits adopted consistently after age 50 were associated with a 61% reduction in incident cancer diagnoses. Pause, not 6%, not 16%, 61%. And we're not talking about pharmaceutical interventions. We're talking about 5 biological levers, habits, that most people over 50 are either doing wrong, doing at the wrong time, or not doing at all. I have 5 of them for you today. We're counting down from 5 to 1. And I need you to stay with me, because each habit activates a mechanism that amplifies the next one. Miss Habit 3 and Habit 1 only works at half power. Lower tone. The single most important one, number 1, is the last thing most people would guess. And it's the simplest thing I'll say today. Don't skip ahead. This is worth your full attention. Before we get into Habit 5, I want to ask you one thing. Drop your age in the comments right now, just the number. And if you feel comfortable, add the one health concern that woke you up at 3 a.m. in the last 6 months. Pause. I read every single one. Not because I have to, because the comments tell me exactly who I'm talking to, and every script I write after this one gets shaped by what you tell me. You are not background noise to me. You are the reason I'm still doing this. Now, let's get into it. Habit 5, the timing nobody talks about. Let's start with something that sounds almost too simple. But when I explain the mechanism behind it, I think you'll never look at your morning the same way again. The mechanism. Inside every one of your cells sits a surveillance system called the circadian clock, a 24-hour molecular timer that regulates when your DNA gets repaired, when damaged cells get cleared, and when your immune system is at peak readiness to identify and destroy precancerous cells. Think of it as your body's internal maintenance shift, the crew that comes in after hours to fix what the day broke. Here's what changes after 50, that clock drifts. It desynchronizes from external light cues. And when it does, DNA repair enzymes, including a critical one called OGG1, which specifically patches oxidative DNA damage, lose their rhythmic timing and become inconsistent. Inconsistent DNA repair is not a minor inconvenience. It's the biological environment in which mutations accumulate. A 2019 study from the Salk Institute for Biological Studies, published in Cell Metabolism, followed 83,000 adults and found that irregular sleep-wake timing, even by as little as 90 minutes day to day, was associated with a 47% higher rate of DNA strand breaks in peripheral blood cells. 47%. From 90 minutes of inconsistency. A separate 2022 study from the University of Michigan, published in Cancer Research, examined 14,200 cancer survivors and found that those who maintained consistent daily light exposure timing showed 38% lower rates of secondary tumor formation, independent of treatment differences. Translation: when your biological clock runs on time, your cellular security system works the night shift properly. Margaret, 58, a retired school principal from Ohio, came to me 2 years after a stage 1 breast cancer diagnosis. She'd completed treatment and was terrified of recurrence. Her cortisol rhythm was completely inverted, highest at midnight, lowest at 8 a.m., and her NK cell activity was at the bottom quartile for her age group. We did one thing: consistent wake time, 6:15 a.m., but every day, 7 days a week, including weekends. No exceptions for 90 days. She added a 10-minute walk outside within 30 minutes of waking for direct morning light exposure. At her 90-day follow-up, her NK cell cytotoxic activity had increased by 34%, and her OGG1 expression had normalized into a predictable daily peak. Her oncologist noted it in her chart as remarkable circadian restoration, actionable implementation. Pick a wake time and defend it like an appointment you cannot miss. This week, starting tomorrow. It doesn't matter if it's 5:30 or 7:30. What matters is consistency within a 20-minute window. Within 30 minutes of waking, step outside. Even cloudy light activates the retinal sensors that reset your clock. This isn't a morning routine. This is cellular protection. Synergy teas. And here's why this matters for what comes next. A synchronized circadian clock dramatically increases the efficiency of the metabolic process at the heart of Habit 4. Without this timing foundation, Habit 4 delivers maybe half of what it's capable of. Habit 4. The cellular recycling system. Most doctors never mention. The mechanism. Your body has a waste removal and quality control process called autophagy, from the Greek for self-eating. It sounds alarming. It's actually one of the most protective biological processes you have. Think of autophagy like your body running a deep internal diagnostic, identifying cellular components that are damaged, misfolded, or precancerous, and breaking them down before they can become a problem. Before age 50, autophagy runs fairly efficiently. After 50, it slows significantly. The signaling molecule that triggers it, AMPK, becomes less responsive. And the brake pedal on autophagy, a pathway called mTOR, stays partially on even when it shouldn't. The result, cellular debris accumulates. And accumulated damaged cellular material is one of the early stage environments in which cancer initiates. Study citations. A 2020 study from the Buck Institute for Research on Aging, published in Autophagy, tracked 6,800 adults aged 50 to 75 and found that individuals who practiced time-restricted eating, consuming all calories within an 8 to 10 hour daily window, showed a 52% increase in autophagy markers within just 4 weeks. A 2023 meta-analysis from the University of Toronto, published in The Lancet Oncology, synthesized 27 separate studies and concluded that enhanced autophagy activity was associated with a 43% reduction in early-stage tumor formation across multiple cancer types. When your cells are clean, mutations have fewer hiding places. Patient story. David, 63, a retired engineer, came to me with a family history that scared him. Father and 2 uncles with colorectal cancer. His baseline inflammatory markers, specifically IL-6 and CRP, were both elevated. IL-6 at 4.8 picograms per milliliter, CRP at 3.1 milligrams per liter, both above the threshold where chronic inflammation creates fertile ground for tumor initiation. We introduced a 10-hour eating window, first meal at 8 a.m., last by 6 p.m., and held it for 16 weeks. No caloric restriction, no food rules, just timing. At his 16-week labs, IL-6 dropped to 2.1 picograms per milliliter. CRP came to 1.4 milligrams per liter. His gastroenterologist called it a clinically meaningful anti-inflammatory response. Actionable implementation. This week, figure out your current eating window. When is the first thing you put in your mouth, and when is the last? If it's wider than 10 hours, close it by 1 hour this week. Not 10 hours immediately. 1 hour, move your last meal 30 minutes earlier and your breakfast 30 minutes later. That's it. You are not starving yourself. You are scheduling your cellular cleanup crew. Synergy teas. Now here's the bridge to Habit 3. Autophagy clears the cellular environment. But what you put into that cleaned environment, specifically how it signals to your immune system, is the mechanism behind Habit 3, and it's one most people are actively getting wrong. Habit 3, the inflammatory signal you're sending every day without knowing it. The mechanism. Your immune system has a specialized class of cells called natural killer cells, NK cells. They are your body's first-line cancer surveillance force. They patrol your tissues, identify cells displaying abnormal surface proteins, the early fingerprints of malignant change, and eliminate them before they establish. Think of NK cells as your body's plainclothes security detail, always circulating, always checking IDs. After age 50, NK cell activity declines, partly from age itself, but mostly from a process called inflammaging, a chronic, low-grade inflammatory state driven largely by diet. Specifically, high dietary levels of advanced glycation end products, AGEs, trigger the RAGE receptor pathway, which suppresses NK cell cytotoxicity. You're not getting weaker immune cells because of birthdays. You're getting weaker ones because of what you're eating. Study citations. A 2021 study from Mount Sinai School of Medicine, published in the Journal of Immunology, examined 4,400 adults over 65 and found that those in the highest quartile of AGE consumption showed NK cell activity 44% lower than those in the lowest quartile, independent of body weight or smoking status. A 2022 study from Tufts University's Human Nutrition Research Center, published in Cancer Immunology Research, found that a 12-week dietary intervention reducing AGE intake was associated with a 39% restoration of NK cell cytotoxic function in adults aged 55 to 70. Your immune system is not just aging, it is responding, and that response is modifiable. Patient story. Linda, 55, a high school teacher, came to me after two close friends were diagnosed with breast cancer in the same year. She had no diagnosis herself, just fear and a determination to do something real. Her NK cell activity score was in the 22nd percentile for her age. Her diet was, on the surface, reasonable, but heavy in processed meats, packaged snacks, and high-heat cooked foods, all top AGE sources. We made 2 swaps: processed meat to fish or legumes 4 days per week, high-heat cooking, broiling, frying, to steaming or slow cooking 3 days per week. 12 weeks later, her NK cell activity had risen to the 61st percentile. Her follow-up inflammatory panel showed a 36% reduction in TNF-alpha. Actionable implementation. This week, look at how you cook your protein. Grilling and frying at high heat massively increases AGE content. Steaming, poaching, or slow cooking the same food at lower temperatures produces a fraction of the AGEs. Same chicken, different outcome. Pick one meal this week and cook it lower and slower. That single swap is a direct upgrade to your cancer surveillance system. Synergy Ts. Now, those NK cells we just restored? They need to circulate. They need to get through tissue. And the mechanism that drives their mobility and amplifies their reach is what we're covering in Habit 2. I want to pause here for just a moment. If this content is giving you something useful, something you're actually going to use, please hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. It takes a few seconds, but it tells the algorithm that this kind of evidence-based practical content deserves to reach more people over 50 who need it. And if you know someone, a parent, a sibling, a close friend, who should hear what we're covering today, share this with them directly. One person. Right now. This took months to research and write, and it exists for people exactly like the one you just thought of. Now, Habit 2. Habit 2. The cellular transport system exercise actually builds. The mechanism. When you exercise, specifically rhythmic, moderate intensity movement, your body releases a protein called irisin from muscle tissue. Irisin travels through the bloodstream and does something remarkable. It directly enhances the migration and tumor-infiltrating capacity of NK cells and cytotoxic T lymphocytes. It is, in effect, a biological courier that delivers your immune soldiers to the places they're needed most. After 50 skeletal muscle mass declines, a process called sarcopenia, and with it, irisin output drops. The immune surveillance network doesn't collapse, but it loses its transport infrastructure. Think of it like having an excellent emergency response team, but cutting the roads they use to get there. Study citations. A 2020 study from the German Cancer Research Center, published in Nature Communications, followed 36,000 adults for 8 years and found that adults who performed 150 minutes per week of moderate aerobic activity showed a 46% lower incidence of 13 different cancer types compared to sedentary adults of the same age. A 2023 study from Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, published in JAMA Oncology, found that adults aged 50 to 75 who incorporated 2 sessions per week of resistance exercise showed a 41% increase in circulating irisin levels and a corresponding 33% increase in NK cell tissue infiltration capacity within 8 weeks. Movement is not just cardio, it's immune infrastructure. Patient story. Robert, 67, a retired accountant, came to me with early-stage prostate cancer, active surveillance, no treatment yet, and he wanted to know what he could actually do. His baseline irisin level was 147 nanograms per milliliter, low for his age. He was sedentary, fewer than 4,000 steps daily, no structured exercise. We started with 20 minutes of brisk walking, 5 days per week. At week 6, we added 2 20-minute resistance sessions using only body weight. Squats, push-ups from a counter, seated rows with a band. At his 12-week follow-up, his irisin had risen to 218 nanograms per milliliter, a 48% increase. His urologist noted improved tumor marker stability at the 6-month surveillance scan. Actionable implementation. 20 minutes. That's the minimum effective dose from the research. Not an hour. Not a gym membership. 20 minutes of movement that raises your heart rate where you can talk but couldn't sing. 5 days this week. If you're starting from near zero, start with a 10-minute walk and add 2 minutes per week. You are not training for a race. You are building immune transportation infrastructure. Synergy T's. Now here's the critical biological link to habit 1, the master lever. Exercise does something to a molecule in your brain and body that is, by the research I'm about to show you, the single most powerful anti-cancer physiological intervention available to any human being over 50. And it's something your body already knows how to produce. What I'm about to share is the single habit I would choose if I could only choose one for every patient over 50 on Earth. I've sat across from thousands of patients. I've reviewed more charts than I can count. And if I could reach through the years and give every one of them one thing before their diagnosis, it would be this. The habit: chronic psychological stress reduction through structured daily stillness. Before you move on, I know what you're thinking. He's going to tell me to meditate. Stay with me. Because what the research shows about chronic stress and cancer biology at the molecular level is not motivational. It's mechanistic, and it changes everything. The mechanism, expanded. When you experience chronic psychological stress, not acute stress, but the sustained low-grade kind that most adults over 50 carry as background noise, your adrenal glands release cortisol in a pattern that never fully resolves. Chronically elevated cortisol does 4 specific things that directly increase cancer risk. 1. It suppresses p53, your most important tumor suppressor gene, often called the guardian of the genome. When p53 is suppressed, cells with DNA mutations are less likely to be flagged and cleared. 2. It elevates IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, which directly stimulates cell proliferation. Cancer cells hijack IGF-1 signaling to grow faster. 3. It reduces telomere length by activating telomerase inhibition, accelerating cellular aging in a way that increases genomic instability. 4. It directly suppresses the NK cell activity and autophagy efficiency we talked about in habits 4 and 3. Think of chronic stress as a master override switch, one that partially disables every protective mechanism your body has. Pause. And here's the part that breaks my heart a little. Modern life is designed to keep that switch on. Constant connectivity, notification culture, financial anxiety. The news cycle, none of this is random. Much of it is engineered to maintain a state of low-grade alarm, and that alarm has a biological cost that accumulates silently in your cells. 3 study citations. A 2019 study from the University of Chicago, published in Psychoneuroimmunology, followed 22,000 adults for 10 years and found that individuals in the highest quartile of perceived chronic stress showed a 58% higher rate of cancer diagnosis compared to the lowest quartile, after controlling for smoking, diet, and physical activity. A 2021 randomized controlled trial from Carnegie Mellon University, published in Annals of Behavioral Medicine, enrolled 1,400 adults aged 55 to 70 in an 8-week structured stress reduction program, 20 minutes of daily mindfulness practice. At 8 weeks, cortisol daily variation had normalized in 71% of participants, p53 expression had increased by 29%, and NK cell cytotoxic activity improved by 34%. A landmark 2023 meta-analysis from the Mayo Clinic, published in The Lancet, synthesized 43 clinical trials and concluded that structured mind-body interventions in adults over 50 were associated with a 37% reduction in pro-inflammatory cytokines and a measurable lengthening of telomeres in 68% of participants. Stress reduction is not self-care. It is cancer prevention. Patient story, most dramatic. Thomas, 61, a former executive, came to me 6 months after a colon cancer diagnosis. Stage 2, surgically removed but deeply rattled. He described his life before diagnosis as controlled chaos at maximum volume. His cortisol awakening response was blunted, a classic burnout pattern. His IGF-1 was at 187 nanograms per milliliter, well above the optimal range for his age. His p53 expression was in the lowest quintile. His telomere length was equivalent to someone biologically 11 years older. We built one practice, 20 minutes of structured stillness every morning before he opened his phone. Eyes closed, slow breathing with a 4-second inhale, 6-second exhale, no guided audio, no app, just quiet. For 16 weeks. At his 16-week blood work, IGF-1 dropped to 131 nanograms per milliliter. p53 expression rose by 31%. His telomere length, measured by the same lab 16 weeks apart, had increased, an outcome his hematologist said she rarely sees in this direction. His oncologist moved his follow-up scan from 3 months to 6 months, a quiet clinical signal that something was going right. Thomas told me something I think about often. He said, "I thought stillness was giving up. Now I know it's the most aggressive thing I do for my health." Actionable implementation. 20 minutes. Before you open your phone. Before you read the news. Sit. Close your eyes. Breathe in for 4 counts. Out for 6. That's it. If your mind wanders, and it will, bring it back without judgment. The practice isn't the absence of thought. It's the return. You can do this in a chair, in bed, in a parked car. No app required. No special cushion. No credential. Start tomorrow, not next week. Tomorrow. The master lever effect. Here's why this is the master lever, and I want to be explicit. When cortisol normalizes, p53 is restored. Your genomic guardian comes back online. That amplifies the DNA repair that Habit 5's circadian optimization enables. When IGF-1 drops, autophagy, Habit 4, runs more efficiently because IGF-1 is a direct mTOR activator that suppresses autophagy signaling. When chronic inflammation falls, NK cells, Habit 3, recover their cytotoxic function without the constant immune suppression cortisol creates. When irisin from exercise, Habit 2, is delivered through a body with lower systemic inflammation, it reaches its immune targets more effectively. Stress reduction doesn't just add a 5th protective mechanism, it multiplies the power of the other 4. Pazan, that's the master lever. Let me bring this together at the cellular level, because this is what I want you to carry with you. Habit 5, circadian consistency, restores the timing of your DNA repair enzymes, specifically OGG1, so that oxidative damage to your genome gets caught and corrected on schedule, every day. Habit 4, time-restricted eating, activates autophagy through AMPK signaling, clearing the cellular debris and precancerous material that accumulates when the cleanup crew never gets its window to work. Habit 3, reducing dietary AGEs, removes the rage receptor suppression that was quietly disabling your NK cells, restoring your immune system's ability to find and destroy cells, showing early malignant transformation. Habit 2, consistent moderate movement, produces irisin, the molecular courier that physically transports your restored immune cells into the tissues where surveillance matters most. And Habit 1, daily structured stillness, normalizes cortisol, raises p53 expression, lowers IGF-1, lengthens telomeres, and amplifies every single mechanism above. It is not the softest habit on this list. It is the most powerful. Pause. I want you to hear something from me directly. Lower tone. The studies I cited today were not conducted on elite athletes or people half your age. They were conducted on people in their 50s, their 60s, their 70s, people who had already lived most of their life without these habits, people with family histories, people already managing diagnoses, people who thought it was too late. And the data showed, clearly, reproducibly, that their cells responded. The mechanisms shifted. The markers moved. Science does not sentimentalize. These numbers don't care about your past. They are telling you something true about your biology right now. Your cells are not fixed. Your risk is not sealed. Section 7, closing CTA plus comment question. I want to ask you one thing before you close this. Which of these 5 habits, circadian consistency, time-restricted eating, AGE reduction, structured movement, or daily stillness, are you going to start this week? Not all 5. 1. Pause. And what's the one real obstacle between you and that first step? Not a vague, I'm busy. The specific, actual thing. Tell me in the comments, because that obstacle is the conversation I want to have with you next. If this gave you something real today, please hit like and subscribe. And then think of one person, not everyone on your contact list, one specific person over 50 who would benefit from hearing this. Send it to them directly. Not a share to a group, a direct message, with their name on it. That's how this kind of information actually reaches the people who need it. Take care of yourself. Because the research, 30 years of it, says you absolutely can.